You arrived here not by chance, but by quiet curiosity. Something inside you is tired of chasing happiness like it's always one step ahead. You've read the quotes, you've seen the smiling faces online, but somehow you still feel like something is missing. The truth. Most modern advice about happiness tells you to add more success, more freedom, more things. But what if happiness doesn't come from adding at all? What if it comes from subtracting, from removing noise, from releasing control, from simplifying the storm inside? This is where Stoicism begins. For over 2,000 years, the Stoics taught a radical idea that true happiness comes not from the outside world, but from the inner alignment between your values, your thoughts, and your actions. They didn't chase good feelings. They practiced good living. And joy, quiet, deep, unshakable joy, followed. Think of this video not as motivation, but as a compass. You'll walk through 8 Stoic practices, each one simple, ancient, and unexpectedly powerful. Not tricks, not hacks, but daily disciplines to build a kind of joy that the world can't take away. If you're someone who's felt like happiness is always almost there, then this may be the conversation you've needed. And if these ideas speak to you, you're welcome to join this journey. We share new Stoic insights every week, quiet reminders, not loud noise. For now, take a breath. And let's begin where the Stoics began, not with the question, how can I feel good, but with something much deeper. How can I live well? Number 1, stop needing to feel good to be good. You wake up and already there's a pressure to feel happy, to feel excited, to feel good. But what if that's the wrong goal? What if chasing the feeling of happiness is the very thing pulling you away from it? In a world that tells you your emotions define your reality, the Stoics offer a different view. You are not your feelings, you are your actions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or do only what's essential." Read that again. He's not saying do more to be happy. He's saying do less and do it well. Strip away the noise, strip away the need to feel amazing all the time, and you'll find something deeper than happiness. You'll find peace. Think of a garden overgrown with weeds. You don't make it beautiful by planting more. You prune, you clear, you let light in, and you are the same. You don't need more mood boosts or emotional highs. You need clarity. So here's the shift. Don't wake up asking, how do I feel today? Wake up asking, what good can I do today? Because that's the paradox of Stoic joy. You feel your best when you forget about feeling good and focus on being good. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." In other words, don't avoid the hard days. Don't chase the soft ones. Use all of them to build the one thing no one can take: your character. Imagine a sculptor chiseling away at stone. Each strike looks like destruction, but in time, a form emerges, something whole, something beautiful. That's you choosing virtue over comfort. That's you letting your discipline carve the shape of your joy. Here's a practice each morning before anything else. Write down one small, virtuous action you'll take, something that aligns with who you want to be. Then do it, even if the feeling isn't there, especially when the feeling isn't there. And as you do it, feel this truth sink in. You don't have to feel motivated to live meaningfully. You don't have to be joyful to act justly. Your happiness does not start with your feelings. It begins with your choices. And every time you choose integrity over impulse, every time you do what's right, even when it's hard, you feel a different kind of satisfaction, a kind that doesn't need to be loud, a kind that doesn't vanish when life gets hard, a kind that grows quietly day by day. That's Stoic happiness. It's not pleasure, it's purpose. And it's available to you today, right now, without needing the world to change. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped waiting to feel good and started living in alignment instead? Number 2, Control the inner climate, not the outer storm. Life happens. The text that stings, the job that ends, the plans that fall through without warning. And just like that, your peace feels like it's gone. You say to yourself, how can I be happy when everything around me is falling apart? But the Stoics would gently say, it's not the outside world that steals your joy. It's how you respond to it. Seneca wrote, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Pause for a second. Breathe that in. How much of your suffering is made from thoughts, not events? How much peace do you lose? Not from what happened, but from the story you told yourself about it. Imagine a candle's flame in the wind. The gusts blow, the flame flickers, but it doesn't go out because the candle knows what it is. Your emotions, they flicker too, but your inner peace, your inner climate that can stay warm, calm, and lit even when the world gets cold. The Stoics didn't teach you to control the storm. They taught you to become the one who stands within it unshaken, alive, clear. Epictetus reminded us, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. So let's make it practical. When something goes wrong, don't say, why is this happening to me? Say, what part of this is under my control? That one question, that tiny shift, can protect your happiness from being at the mercy of chaos. Let's go deeper. There's a part of you that believes, if everything goes well, then I'll be happy. But Stoicism flips that. It says, if I build my mind well, then everything can go however it goes, and I'll still be happy. Powerful, right? It's like building a house with solid walls. The storm still rages outside, but inside it's warm, it's steady, you're safe. So how do you build that house? You start with this truth. You cannot always control what enters your life, but you can always choose how to interpret it. You can always decide where to place your focus. And here's the magic. When you stop demanding the world be peaceful, and instead become peaceful in the world, you liberate yourself. Try this practice today. The next time something annoys you, pause. Take one slow breath and whisper to yourself, this is not the thing. My reaction is the thing. Then choose a better one. Smile even when it's hard. Speak gently when anger tempts you. Detach when your ego wants to flare up. That's what it means to control the inner climate. You'll feel moments of joy, not because life is easy, but because you've stopped handing your mood to life like it's in charge. So I'll ask you this. If your happiness depends on peace outside, how long will you be waiting? Instead, let it begin inside, where the flame stays lit even when the wind picks up, even when the world forgets your name, even when the noise grows loud. You remain calm, clear, content, not because the storm ended, but because you no longer need it to. Number 3, choose your judgments. Choose your joy. Not everything that hurts has to harm you, and not everything that feels good is truly good for you. But in the moment, it's hard to tell, isn't it? You get bad news, your stomach drops. Someone criticizes you. Your heart tightens. Plans fall apart. You call the whole day ruined. But let me ask, what if none of those things were bad? What if the pain came not from what happened, but from what you told yourself it meant? Epictetus said it best. It is not events that disturb people. It is their judgments concerning them. That's not a cute quote. It's a challenge, a radical one, because it means you can take back so much power, not by changing your life, but by changing the way you interpret it. Imagine this: 2 people walk through the same rainstorm. One shivers and curses the sky. The other lifts their face, feels the drops, and smiles. Same storm, different judgment, and so a different emotional life. This is one of the core teachings of Stoicism. Your suffering isn't from the thing itself. It's from the meaning you assign to it. So here's a practice. Next time you feel upset, disappointed, or rattled, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what did I just believe that made this feel bad? Is it your belief that they shouldn't talk to you that way? That the traffic shouldn't be this bad? That your efforts deserve reward? Catch the judgment. Catch it before it daunts you. Because once you see it, you can choose to drop it. Marcus Aurelius offered this timeless advice. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. It almost sounds too simple, but in your bones, you know it's true. Because when you're calm, when you're centered, you can see the words weren't the pain. Your story about them was. The delay wasn't suffering. Your expectation made it so. It's like wearing tinted glasses. If you walk around with lenses of entitlement, resentment, or fear, you'll see injustice in every shadow. But if you change the lens to curiosity, to patience, to compassion, then suddenly the world softens, even when it doesn't change. You reclaim your joy not by forcing life to behave, but by choosing how to see it. This isn't denial. This isn't toxic positivity. This is mental sovereignty. You own your thoughts, or they own you. Let's make this real. The next time something annoys you, say to yourself, this is just a moment, not a meaning. Let the feeling pass without a story. Let the cloud drift without turning it into a storm. Because the longer you sit with it, the more you realize joy has always been about attention. Where it goes, your mood follows. Where it dwells, your world forms. And yes, it takes practice. Yes, it takes awareness. But what could be more worthwhile than taking back the power to choose how you feel? So I ask you now, what story are you telling yourself today that's stealing your joy? Can you rewrite it? Can you let it go? Can you simply observe without judgment? Because sometimes the rain is just the rain, not a punishment, not a bad omen, just water falling from the sky. And in learning to see it that way, you don't just gain clarity, you gain freedom. And in that freedom, you might just find a happiness that's been quietly waiting to return to you. Number 4, let go of what you can't keep. You hold on so tightly, don't you, to your plans, to your status, to the people you love, the comfort you've built, the version of life you imagined. And yet, life keeps whispering the same truth. None of it is truly yours. It's terrifying at first, but also freeing. Because the more you grip what life is bound to take, the more you suffer when it inevitably slips away. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. Epictetus taught, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he is not, but rejoices for those which he has. He didn't say, you can't feel sadness. He didn't say to be a robot. He simply asked, can you love what you have without needing to own it forever? Imagine sunlight in your hands. You stretch your fingers, catch its warmth. But try to close your grip, try to possess it, and it vanishes. That's how life works. The tighter you clutch, the faster joy escapes. So what's the alternative? Gratitude without attachment, presence without possession, to love deeply, without needing it to last, to show up fully, without demanding a reward. You begin to realize letting go isn't loss, it's clarity. It's the understanding that what's essential is never truly gone. And what fades probably wasn't meant to stay. Seneca wrote, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. You see the wisdom, don't you? It's not about how much you hold. It's about how lightly you carry it. So let's talk practice. Take one thing today, just one that you've been gripping tightly, a fear of losing it, a need to control it, a story that says, if this goes, I won't be okay. Then breathe, open your metaphorical hands, say softly, if it's meant to stay, it will. If not, I will still be whole. Because when you build your happiness on what stays, you build on sand. But when you build it on who you are, even when things fall away, you stay standing. Here's the strange thing. When you let go of needing something, you begin to see it more clearly. You enjoy it more honestly. You stop demanding permanence and start welcoming presence. It's like watching autumn leaves fall. They're not failures, they're not signs of something wrong. They're reminders that beauty isn't meant to be kept, it's meant to be witnessed. So much of modern misery comes from clinging to timelines, to roles, to imagined futures. But the Stoic smiles gently and says, let it pass. Let it pass through you. Your peace is not in your possessions. Your joy is not in how long something lasts. It's in the depth of your presence while it's here. You came into this world with nothing, and you'll leave with nothing. What you do in between, that's where joy lives. So let me ask you, what would your day feel like? If you stopped fearing loss and started honoring impermanence, would you love more freely, speak more kindly, worry less about keeping and more about giving? The Stoics didn't run from this truth. They embraced it, they sat with it, they trained in it, because they knew. When you stop gripping what you can't keep, your hands become free to hold what matters. And in that space, in that quiet surrender, you don't feel empty. You feel light. You feel whole. You feel happy. Number 5, live like it matters. The Stoic habit that sharpens the present. You rush through life as if you'll have time to come back and do it right later. But what if there isn't a later? What if the most dangerous lie you're told is, there's always more time? The Stoics didn't see life as endless. They saw it as a series of moments, each one sacred, each one slipping. And instead of running from that truth, they used it to live more deeply. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That line isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It brings focus to the fog. Because when you really understand that time is limited, you begin to ask better questions, not how do I fit more in, but what actually matters. Picture a sand timer on your desk. Each grain that falls is a choice, gone, unchangeable. You can't flip it back, but you can choose where the next grain goes. This isn't about panic. This isn't about fear. It's about urgency with compassion. When you pause and remember that nothing lasts forever, petty arguments lose their weight. Distractions seem smaller, and love feels sharper. That text you've been meaning to send, send it. That walk you've been putting off, take it. That moment of silence you've been denying yourself. Close your eyes right now. Epictetus once said, keep before your eyes day by day, death and exile, and all things which appear terrible, but most of all death. And you will never entertain any abject thought, nor too eagerly covet anything. What he meant was this: when you remember life is fleeting, you stop chasing. You stop clinging, you start being. The modern world wants you to forget this truth. It numbs you with noise, endless scrolling, distraction disguised as connection. But the Stoics cut through all that. They looked straight at impermanence and said, this is what gives life meaning. Because when you live like your moments matter, they do. Here's a practice in the morning. Ask yourself, if today were my last normal day, how would I live it? Say it softly, not with fear, but with focus. Would you complain as much? Would you judge yourself as harshly? Would you wait to feel ready? Or would you act? This is the power of remembering. You don't control the length of your life, only the depth. It shifts your posture. It awakens your eyes. It makes this very moment feel almost holy. You begin to notice the warmth of sunlight through a window, the way your breath slows when you're fully present, the fact that your heart is still beating, and that's enough reason to be grateful. So much of modern anxiety is rooted in delay, in putting off what matters, in acting like forever is guaranteed. But it's not. And that's okay, because knowing that lets you live on purpose. You stop chasing what doesn't matter. You stop rehearsing the past. You stop outsourcing your peace to someday. And you return to here, to now, to this breath, to this choice, to this life right here, right now. So ask yourself quietly, if this was your final week of ordinary living, what would suddenly become clear? Maybe it's time to speak up. Maybe it's time to forgive. Maybe it's time to simplify. Not because your time is ending, but because you remember that it won't go on forever. And that awareness isn't heavy, it's freeing. It helps you stop wasting your life on things that never mattered. It brings your attention home to the small, the real, the undeniably precious. The Stoics knew only those who face the end can truly begin. And the life you want, it doesn't start later, it starts when you do. Number 6, rehearse difficulty. So life feels easier. You hope life gets easier, smoother, kinder, but deep down, you already know it won't. The setbacks will come, the people will disappoint you, the storms will roll in when you least expect them. So what if, instead of hoping for an easy life, you trained for a strong one? This is where the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum comes in. It means rehearsal of the evils. It sounds dark, maybe even negative, but it's the exact opposite. Seneca explained he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. In other words, prepare for difficulty, and it loses its sting. Think about it. When you rehearse the worst, not obsessively but calmly, you take away its element of surprise. You shrink its power. You meet life with eyes wide open. Imagine you're an athlete. You train with ankle weights. You run uphill. You rehearse in the rain. Why? Because when game day arrives, your body is ready. Your mind is calm. Nothing catches you off guard. That's what Stoics did with their emotions. They didn't wait for hardship to test them. They tested themselves every single day. They would imagine losing their wealth, their status, even their loved ones. Not to numb themselves, but to appreciate now more fully, and to walk into tomorrow with strength, not shock. Let me be clear, this isn't about expecting the worst. It's about preparing your mind so you can stay centered, even when life shakes. Here's how to do it. Start small. Each morning before you pick up your phone, imagine something going wrong. Not in a panic, not catastrophizing, but like this. Today I might be misunderstood. I might be delayed. Someone may criticize me. Then say, and I will remain calm. I will respond with grace. I will keep my peace. That's training. That's emotional armor, lightweight but strong, and it works. Because when that traffic jam comes, you've already met it in your mind. When your plans fall through, you've already breathed through it in the morning silence. Instead of shouting, "Why is this happening?" you simply nod. Here it is. I rehearsed this. I'm ready. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. And it's not pessimism, it's preparedness. So when life behaves like, life, you don't crumble. You don't overreact. You respond with clarity, with calm, with the quiet confidence of someone who's done the inner work. Modern life tells you to stay positive, but Stoicism tells you, stay grounded. Don't build happiness on illusions. Build it on resilience, because when you become the kind of person who rehearses discomfort, you start to welcome it. You stop fearing it. You stop letting it rob you of your joy. In fact, you'll find a strange thing happening. The more you rehearse the difficult, the easier the present begins to feel. That awkward conversation, manageable. That failure, informative. That fear, just another drill you've already walked through in your mind. And then one day, someone will look at you and say, "How are you so calm in the chaos?" And you'll smile. Not because it's easy, but because you prepared. And that preparation became your peace. So let me ask, what fear could you rehearse today? Just enough to release its grip on your mind. What hardship could you mentally walk through, not to manifest it, but to reclaim your power from it? This is how Stoic joy is built. Not in fantasy, not in avoidance, but in training. Train your mind for winter, and every season becomes bearable. Train your heart to stay open through loss, and love becomes deeper, not weaker. Train your soul to face life head on. And even pain becomes a teacher, not a tyrant. You don't need life to be easier. You just need to be stronger. And the Stoics, they gave you the tools. You just have to pick them up, one rehearsal at a time, one breath at a time. Number 7, find joy in small acts of virtue. You think joy must be big, loud, visible, a promotion, a celebration, a round of applause. But the Stoics, they knew a different kind of joy, one that lives in silence, one that grows when no one is watching. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In other words, don't talk about what matters, live it, not because it makes a splash, but because it makes you whole. You see, virtue doesn't need an audience, it doesn't crave recognition, it just is. Like a candle quietly lighting a dark hallway, and it doesn't shout, look at me, it simply glows, and the space becomes safer, warmer, better. So what does this have to do with happiness? Everything. Because when your actions align with your values, even when no one sees it, a kind of joy settles into your bones. Not the jittery excitement of ego, but the deep, calm rightness of living well. Modern life wants you to chase attention. Followers, claps, metrics, numbers, always more. But Stoicism whispers, none of that is needed. Your peace doesn't require permission. Your purpose doesn't require applause. You don't need to post your kindness. You just need to be kind. You don't need credit for your patience. You just need to practice it. And with each of these quiet choices, you plant seeds. Tiny ones. Invisible even. But over time, they grow into a forest of inner strength. Here's what you can do today. Pick one small virtuous act. Something no one will know you did. Buy someone's coffee. Let someone merge in traffic. Take a breath before replying to the rude comment. And afterward, don't post about it. Don't mention it. Just feel it. That quiet yes inside. That moment where you chose to rise, not react. That's Stoic joy. It doesn't explode. It accumulates, like drops filling a deep well. And when the hard times come, because they will, you'll drink from that well. You'll remember who you are, not because you talked about virtue, but because you've lived it, repeatedly, faithfully, silently. Seneca wrote, the reward of a good deed is to have done it, not the praise, not the repost, just the act itself. That is enough. Imagine a gardener tending plants in secret. No audience, no applause. But one day the garden blooms, and everyone says, wow, how beautiful. They don't see the years of soil, sweat, and silence, but you do. And that's what matters. Because virtue isn't a performance, it's a practice. And through that practice, happiness begins to shift. It becomes less about feeling good and more about being good. Not for them, not for show, but for you. Because you know, this is who you want to be. This is who you were meant to be. Let's get even more real. Ask yourself, when was the last time I did something right? Even though no one noticed, and if it's been a while, that's okay. Today is your chance, not to impress, but to align, to walk your talk, to become what you respect, to stop outsourcing your peace to performance, and instead find it within character. You don't need the stage, you just need the moment, and moments are everywhere. Hold the door, put your phone down during a conversation, say thank you even when you're tired. These aren't small, they're sacred, because in them you choose yourself, your higher self, your stoic self. And that choice, it leaves a glow, not on your feed, but in your spirit. So I ask you now, what is one quiet act of virtue you can do today, expecting no reward, giving no explanation, just because it's the right thing to do? Let your joy come from that, from showing up, from standing tall, from living as if someone wise is always watching, even if that someone is just you. Number 8, be the mountain, not the weather. Some days you're radiant, clear-headed, focused, kind. Other days you're anxious, irritable, thrown off by one glance, one word, one unexpected twist, and it feels like happiness. Real, steady happiness is out of reach, like your emotions are the sky, and you're just the weather that passes through. But what if you weren't the storm? What if you were the mountain beneath it? Still, solid, unmoving. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rocky headland against which the waves continually break. It stands firm, and around it the seething waters are laid to rest." That's who you are deep down. Not the mood that changes, not the insult that stings, not the fear that rises, but the core beneath all of it. Let's say it simply, you are not your emotions. You feel them, yes. You observe them, of course, but they are not your identity. They are just weather, passing, temporary, not meant to define you. Yet how often do we forget that? How often do we act on the first spark of anger, only to regret it later? How often do we believe the sad story in our head and spiral into it as if it were truth? But here's what the Stoics taught. Emotions are not the enemy, they're just signals. But you choose what they mean. You choose whether to follow the wind or to root down like the mountain. Picture it. Storm clouds roll in, the wind howls, rain lashes the earth, and there you are, still anchored, unafraid, not because the storm is gone, but because you know it will pass and you will remain. That's the heart of Stoic strength. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about not being ruled by it. So what do you do when the mood swings, when anxiety rises, when someone else's storm tries to pull you in? You pause, you breathe, you return to center, you remember, this is weather, I am the mountain. Marcus reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's not just philosophy, that's a lifeline. Because when your happiness rises and falls with your mood, you're no longer in control. You become reactive, fragile, unmoored. But when your peace is built on principle, on values like patience, courage, humility, then you walk through fire and stay composed, not perfect, but present. Let's make this real. Next time your emotions start spinning, say this. This is a cloud. I do not have to follow it. Name what you're feeling, welcome it. Then let it move on without dragging you behind it. Because your emotions are like birds in the sky. They fly overhead. But you don't have to let them build a nest in your hair. You can acknowledge them and choose differently. And in doing so, you reclaim your agency. You build emotional resilience. You carve out space for joy that doesn't vanish with the mood swings. That's Stoic joy, steady, deep, unmoved by noise. You stop chasing feel-good moments. You start building a feel-good foundation. And from that foundation, you show up better. You lead with grace. You offer calm to others who are caught in the storm. Because the truth is, not everyone will be grounded. Not everyone will choose stillness. But you can. You must. So I ask you, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when the winds pick up? Who are you when your peace is tested? You don't need the world to be calm. You just need you to be. And you can. You truly can. Because inside of you, there's always been something stronger than the chaos, something wiser than the noise, something deeper than the waves. The mountain has always been there. Now it's time to stand like it. Final reflection. Joy is a discipline. You came here seeking happiness, not the kind that fades by nightfall, not the kind that depends on likes, applause, or sunny days, but something real, something that lasts. And maybe now, you see it. Happiness, in the Stoic sense, was never a feeling to chase. It was a discipline to practice, not loud, not easy, but liberating. The Stoics taught you to find joy in virtue, in stillness, in aligning with what's right, especially when it's hard. They showed you how to greet discomfort with dignity, how to lose without being lost, how to love without clinging, and how to rise quietly again and again. So let me ask, what if your next moment of happiness wasn't something you waited for, but something you chose through how you live? That's the path now before you. And yes, it's narrow. Yes, it asks something of you, but it also gives something in return, a kind of joy that no one can steal, because it doesn't come from out there. It begins and ends within you. If you've felt something shift today, if a line, a breath, a question landed in your heart, then hold it. Let it guide your next action, not later, now. And if this is the kind of journey you want to walk, one of peace, purpose, and quiet power, you're welcome here. We explore Stoic wisdom together, one steady step at a time. But for now, just pause. Let this truth echo gently in your mind. You don't have to chase joy. You can practice it. You can become it.